What's up, YouTube? In the background, you might see something a little different, a little strange, and this is Cast on Crit Reap Aura Stacker, the build that I went over in the last video where I saw the 230 million pop, and I decided why not try something different. PoE is a little bit stale nowadays, especially with pretty much no new content, everyone just waiting for the new announcement, which is going to be in around 3 weeks or so. So I just decided to try out this build, maybe try out Aura Stacker for almost one last time before it might change forever. No one really knows how they will nerf Aura Stackers. It might be completely bricked. But as you can see, this build can function pretty well. And the nicest thing about this build is honestly the budget. The last build I looked at did not use Secrets of Suffering. So the budget was honestly through the roof. He had a Hatred crit Watcher side with Wrath crit. And it just ends up being extremely expensive. So I decided to use Secrets of Suffering, get 100% crit for free. Now there is a downside for that in that the damage is not immediate, as you have to get the brittle stacks. So the more ailment effect you have, the better and more consistent the build will feel and the faster it will clear. And in here you can see I actually have 50 out of 50 rage down below, and the reason is that I'm actually using Berserker instead of Necromancer. And the reason behind that is just a little bit more move speed on mapping. You can still use Necromancer, but you can't use the Slipstream belt as your attacks per second becomes too high. Cast on Crit is all about breakpoints, and once you have 52% cooldown recovery, you cannot go over 10.1 attacks per second or something, and it will effectively cut your damage in nearly half if you do. So this is something that's very important, and that's what allows us to go away from the Necromancer as the second part of the Ascendancy. As you can see here, the build does the damage, and it can do the Tropical Island, and it's not too bad. But there are some issues. I'm going to go over the pros and cons of the build. I'm going to go over the build and what I currently have that this character is using. The build is around 20 to 30 mil DPS, and it does show in the Maven kills. I'll showcase some boss kills later on, but let's get straight into the build and the gear overview. Man, building this character was quite interesting, and as usual, when you want to make a character, make sure to go with all white sockets so that you can try out different skill combinations and gem links. So let's see, my gear is not very good. This is my Aura Stacker from previous days at the beginning of the league, and I sold off most of the good stuff. So from what you see here, there is a lot more damage that can be gotten out of this gear. So this Nebulous is pretty bad. What you ideally want is you want multi and spells deal double damage. Not really anything special about this. I think this is actually completely garbage for this build. The only thing good about it is that it's well rolled. And cast speed is actually completely useless. So Hubris, this is Discipline, Reduced Reservation. We do have a lot of spare mana for this build, so you could go with the Reap enchant and getting 6 blood charges instead of 5. And in this helm, you pretty much only care about the reservation of skills and then +2 AoE. Since RMR is not so big of an issue, you could technically use another Hubris with like the 15% implicit on the synthesized helm, and that will probably be more damage. But for all intensive purposes, this helm is more than fine. So what you want is Discipline Reservation if you need RMR. And if you don't need RMR, I would go over Reap enchant like AoE or Blood Charge, because AoE will make the skill feel a lot better on clear. So this amulet is actually pretty horrible. It's pretty much a synthesized amulet with Chaos Res and a Score multi that I multi-modded. You can see here I still have prod speed, prod damage, and if you were to play Reap, I would probably recraft it and get, I think you want multi-mod, percent ES, and you want area of effect and area damage. Now ideally you actually want effective non-damaging ailments as one of the mods, but I was unable to find an amulet with that, but that's probably what you want instead of a multi-mod. So instead of multi-modding, you want to get increased effective non-damaging ailments for sure. However, it's kind of hard to craft anything or buy any amulets at this stage. Increased effective non-damaging ailments will be the #1 thing to make the build feel a lot more consistent. So Prism Guardian here, nothing special about it. Another 3 white socket items so that I can try out different skill gems. 2 Call of the Brotherhoods. These Call of the Brotherhoods really do not matter what you have on them, so these are actually just completely useless. fire damage to spells and attacks was mainly used for Cinder Swallow in the past, but I'm no longer using Cinder Swallow. And then you have global physical damage, and that gives a little bit of damage, but it's really not that big of a deal. So you can pretty much use vanilla Call of the Brotherhoods, which actually makes this build relatively affordable compared to a lot of higher budget aura stackers. Now, Asenap's Gentle Touch, you pretty much use this because we are scaling Fizz conversion a lot, and this makes the explosion feel very good. It helps with the Reap clear. It also gives you life to give you a higher life pool in order to sustain your Reap life cost. And it gives you Explode, of course, and I did get a +2/+2 one, so my Smite is level 28, and I'm able to get Discipline to level 26. And actually, I need a Vol Discipline level 21 so I can have more ES. So you can see here, this setup is completely not optimal. Clarity should probably not be in here, and I should probably re-chrome this thing and put like Haste or Precision or anything but Clarity, right? Maybe Herald of Purity even, but we'll try out some different combinations later on in the coming days after I play D2R. So Torrent Reclamation is what I'm using. You could also use a regular cooldown recovery belt. You need to get Aspect of the Avian in somewhere. I don't have Aspect of the Avian. So ideally, you could probably try to get it on this pair of boots. You could try to get it on the helm if you have an open suffix. So there's a lot of different options for it. But Aspect of the Avian is a very, very, very good aspect to have, especially for clear speed, as it gives you move speed. And it gives you double damage chance, which is 20% chance to deal double damage. Now, the nice thing about Torrent Reclamation is it gives you 20% cooldown recovery rate. And then these boots I have, and these are stolen from my Lightning Strike guy. This also has 20% cooldown recovery rate, and it has increased effect of Tailwind. And it also has the Pendant chance, so it actually ends up being pretty strong. So overall, we need some cooldown recovery on the boots and the belt. And lastly, you need cooldown recovery on Cast on Crit. So all in all, you need the cooldown recovery rate to add up to 52%. So this one here gives you 22, here gives me 20, and here gives me 20. So I actually have 62% cooldown recovery rate. So I'm actually over how much I need, but being over is not too bad. There's certain breakpoints, I think it's like 52 and 44%. And at these breakpoints, you have a certain amount of attack speed. And if you go over that amount of attack speed, your build will do significantly less damage. And I'll show you what I mean real fast here. So right now, I think the new Pob fork actually can account for Cast on Crit pretty well. So right now I'm playing, it says I'm playing Berserker, right? Or this is Ascendant. So you can see here, if you use Torrent Reclamation, your damage actually goes down by a lot. And it's all because of Slipstream. Slipstream makes it so that your attack speed is too high. So you can see here, Cyclone is 10.38, which is okay. It's below the threshold. But once you get your Cyclone to 11.33, you can see how much lower the damage becomes. So it is a drastic damage loss to go above the attack speed. And it will lower your trigger rate by a lot. So you can see here, your trigger rate goes down a lot. So the more attack speed you have, the more of a disaster it is. So Vol Haste actually ends up being a huge damage loss at a certain point. So you see here, if you have Vol Haste and you use it, you immediately lose 5 million damage. So attack speed is only good up to a certain point. And what this means is that Necromancer is a lot of times not the best ascendancy. So you can see Berserker here actually just has more damage. And you can also not press Berserk in maps and you'll get stun immunity while you have at least 25 rage. And it also gives you a little bit of movement speed. So you can see here it's 10% movement speed at 50, at 50 rage. And if you ever press Berserk, then you'll get a lot more. And this also allows you to use Slipstream Belt for even more damage as you're still below the threshold. So your Cyclone is still 8.97. So even if you press Vol Haste maybe, but Vol Haste puts it to 13.12. So immediately you'll see that the damage will be lower when you have Vol Haste up. So it's all about playing around and trying to get your attack speed to like 10.1 per second, I think, for a Cyclone. And then at that point, you will not be able, you can't really try to increase your attack speed or you'll lose a large chunk of damage on single target. That's why usually Headhunter is a little bit weird, because when you get like the haste buff, you will do less damage. And that's why Torrent Reclamation a lot of times might just be a better belt. But if the map is juiced enough and you have an infinite Headhunter stacks and Soul Eater, then it just ends up being better, right? Because you just have infinite damage, and even 70% of infinite damage is way more. Now, the main thing here is Secrets of Suffering allows us to get the crit chance we need, 100% crit. So you can see here it's 100%. So we need around 12 brittle. 12 brittle brings it to around 100%, right? Even 10 brings it to 100%. So you can see here at 10, you get 100% crit chance. Without Secrets of Suffering, the damage of the build is 6.8 mil. You actually don't even trigger that many cyclones. So you can see here that 10 brittle is all you need, and look how much damage it gives you. And that's how OP Secrets of Suffering is. Without Secrets of Suffering, you would have to spend so many points to get crit. You would need a Hatred crit Watcher's Eye, a Wrath crit Watcher's Eye. You would need to find ways to get crit everywhere, and it would just be a horrendous experience to try to get your crit high enough to play the build. And this is pretty much the reason why Secrets of Suffering is kind of overpowered for Aura Stackers. And I do think Cast on Crit on Aura Stackers with Secrets of Suffering will be a very, very good archetype if it lives. So Aura Stacker has to live the next patch, and Secrets of Suffering has to live the next patch. And it actually ends up being a relatively budget setup because you just have so much mana left over. So you don't need any RMR jewels with double multi. You don't even need RMR on a lot of these jewels, so you can end up doing a setup that's extremely, extremely cheap. I'm even using Unnatural Instinct with no RMR, Intuitive Leaf no RMR, Might of the Meek no RMR. This jewel here, no RMR. This one is RMR, this one is RMR. This one's no RMR, no RMR, no RMR, and no RMR on the Watcher's Eye. So I'm using what, like 1, 2, 3, 4 RMR jewels in total. And that's purely because we use Sack of Walls. Now, the main thing about Sack of Walls is you need to find a way to get your Chaos Res high enough. So you do need these medium clusters with the Chaos Resist. And I do have Chaos Res on the Amulet and the boots. So it ends up being 57%. And at 57%, you don't really die to Chaos damage, even at 775 life. Ideally, you would want to get more percent life and multi-jewels and multi with spell damage. But at this point in the league, I'm pretty lazy to buy this stuff. So you can see a lot of my gear, then the upcoming videos you'll see, is pretty bad. Like this is a 1 multi, 11 multi jewel. This jewel I was using is 0 multi. So you can see here a lot of improvements to be made, and I'm actually pretty excited to optimize it in the next days after I play some Diablo 2. So this build has a lot of potential. Of course, it has potential if someone's able to get 230 million on the PoE Ninja. And I do feel like it's pretty fun to play. It's not the fastest map clear because, of course, it's like Cyclone. And you don't really move that fast without like self-chill or berserk shenanigans. But it is a blast to play. And this actually has no aura implicits on any of the Call of the Brotherhoods or Prism Guardian or even the Amulet. So you can get some aura implicits and then you can put in a movement skill. So I'm pretty much just running around with my movement skill. Now for Flask, I have Bottle Fave, Azuri's Promise, Starlight Chalice, which gives you increased effect of non-damaging ailments. And it also gives you some exposure, which gives you more pen. And then you have a Diamond Flask. I don't really know how good this Diamond Flask is. You can probably swap it out for Cinder Swallow or something, and then Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline. So let's see if we actually just swapped out this Diamond Flask for Cinder Swallow. You can see here, it's slightly more damage. And is it because Cyclone crit? Yeah, so this is actually ends up being more damage because you can put the enemy is ignited here, and then yeah. So Cinder Swallow is probably the best flask instead of a Diamond Flask. But overall, build is really fun to play. So let's show some bossy and some general mapping, and you can see how it is. It's more of an experimental build still. There's a lot of optimizations, but in the current league climate, it's kind of hard to pull off these gear changes, but the build does work. Oh yeah, one last thing. People wonder, how do you sustain the life cost? You don't use Zealot's Oath, so that you have over, 760 life regen. And how do you get your ES regen back? Your ES regen will be purely regenerated through the Watcher's Eye mod, which is plus 30 ES on each enemy hit. It kind of works. It's not too bad. You can maybe try to get Energy Shield regen Discipline Watcher's Eye, but it's pretty much the best that we can hope for. But you can also get Energy Shield Leech with spell damage as a large cluster, and that should actually help it out a lot. Because I actually played this variant before, but with self-cast Reap, and I was actually able to make it feel fine for mapping. But Thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope you enjoy the boss clips.
I get lost inside my thoughts, and when I start to think, oh, the door closest starts to end up on the brink. I tried so hard, but all these scars, they cut so deep, I bleed. I fell so fast from heaven, it's like someone clipped my wings. Now I'm falling, and I can't see the ground. Can we stop this gravity? It keeps bringing me down. I can't breathe, and I don't wanna die. Can we stop this gravity? 'Cause I don't wanna say goodbye. I forgive the pain you gave to me so long ago. Sleepless nights I laid awake just begging to let go. I almost got to suicidal thoughts, but you stepped in. An angel sent from heaven showed me how to live again. Now I'm falling, and I can't see the ground. Can we stop this gravity? It keeps bringing me down. I can't breathe, and I don't wanna die. Can we stop this gravity? 'Cause I don't wanna say goodbye. My love, I'm gone. I need to be strong. The darkness had tried to swallow me. Some days I fall, but I hear your call. I pray I don't hit the ground. Gravity. Gravity.
I hope everyone enjoyed the bossing. It's pretty good on Maven. Damage is actually pretty absurd for the budget level of this ore stacker currently, and I do think that it has a lot of potential. Clear is never going to be the best as with any cast on crit skill or cast on crit cyclone skill, and maybe another skill would be better with triggering cast on crit. I haven't really thought about it, but overall build is super fun to play. Definitely a work in progress. Secrets of Suffering allows cast on crit ore stackers to be a very viable budget option in my opinion, and I do think that it is the future of ore stacking for budget builds. But at this point in the league, not that many people can try this out, as not that many people are actually even playing the game. So in the end, hopefully next league is not nerfed, and I will play this at the start if it's not nerfed, because cast on crit is pretty fun, and who doesn't like using ore stackers with cast on crit? But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more mirrors and exalts than I do, and see you next time. Bye.